I've got an idea. What if instead of going to the gym and endlessly working out to try to get fit and healthy, I could just take my consciousness and put it into someone else's body, and they can go work out for me. Someone who enjoys lifting weights and running and doing all that stuff. And then I could sit around in their body watching TV or playing video games for 2 hours while they get me into the best shape of my life. Now imagine a dystopian world where this type of technology not only exists, but there are entire businesses and industries built on top of it. Imagine bodybuilders, a company where you allow a trainer to go work out in your body and you get to just relax. Today I've got my buddy Zach on here. Zach and I came up with this idea about 8 years ago when we were both in the Marine Corps. We began fleshing out the world of the story and coming up with some of the lore, but today we're going to revisit that story and we're going to outline a feature film. Jim is our main character. He is a trainer at Bodybuilders. Every day he goes into work and he swaps bodies with one of his clients and works out for an hour, and he does this dozens of times a week. Phil is just another one of his clients. He doesn't seem suspicious at all to Jim. But one day, Phil leaves with Jim's body. Now Jim is stuck in an out-of-shape, extremely sore, foreign body, and he's being hunted by a mysterious figure. Welcome into the Phaneron. I don't have any type of an outline. When we lost this footage, or when we lost the scripts that one time, I don't think I've opened it since then. So if anything, it's on Celtics, but I think we should not open anything up. This is going to be good because the things that we remember and already we're already describing the world, those are the things that were meant to stay in the story, and the things we don't remember are the things that we're not strong enough to stay in anyway. We are now better storytellers than when we conceived this idea, and so let's start from scratch. I remember some of the beats of the story, but this is what I think we should do.
The beats I remember, it starts off with him going to the gym, gets to the gym, doing a day's routine.
Didn't we call him Jim?
Enter bad guy.
Didn't we call him Jim too?
Yeah, Jim.
Oh man, we're the best at naming people.
Where is Bodybuilders? This page.
I just shared a writer duet and a Google Sheet with you. I've got this beat sheet pulled up on Google Sheets. I just shared it with you. It's got Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, just kind of the outline in the top, and then down below it's the actual beat sheet, the story beats, the therefore and then but of each scene essentially. And we don't technically need to go through all of them, but it will help us kind of outline the actions of the story, and then we can go back in deeper and just refer back to this, and then we can change it as we write too, because we're pantsers, we come up with stuff on the fly. But this will at least give us an idea of where we're going and who the antagonist is and stuff, because I know we have a really good idea, but getting it down on paper is just going to help us.
Are we
so Jim,
how many 2.5 hours are we shooting for? This is a movie, right? Not a
this is definitely a feature film, and I'm shooting for between 90 and 120 pages. I think probably 90 is not going to be enough. 2 hours is probably, like you said, 2 hours is probably the best. And then we'll just see if it's 2.5. It's 2.5.
Okay.
Okay, so inciting incident is going to be I would say a stunning surprise would be Jim's body is gone. Not Jim. The inciting incident is going to be well, actually, What's the other guy's name? Did we call him Phil? You remember?
I think it was Phil because Philip Seymour Hoffman. But
Yeah.
we have to have a different name then. Who are we imagining? I'm not imagining Dwayne anymore. Now I'm imagining fucking like Jack Ryan or whatever that guy's name is.
Yeah, the guy who plays Jack Ryan. I think he would be sick for that role. Because also, you know what else he was in? Yeah. Sorry, I said Jack Ryan too. You know what else he was in?
A bunch of movies. The Fast and the Furious one. He was in this Gentleman's movie that he's in.
He's also in this. I'm pretty sure he's from. What's that show called? About the football team. And it's like a comedy show. Blue Mountain State. I'm pretty sure he's in Blue Mountain State, and he's like this comedic relief in that show, and so he's actually could be funny, and I think he would play actually a really good Jim because he could be smart but ditzy at the same time, and like intimidating but also like, you know, a goofball at the same time.
Well,
so
with the voice you're talking about, because the fat guy is going to be Jim.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying is like he can act.
Good. Yeah, he can act.
Yeah, he can act. So he's very versatile is what I'm saying. I think he would play that role really well. And then yeah, I don't know who I'm thinking for Phil. And nor do I know like Phil, you know.
It's got to be a fatter kind of guy.
Jack Black?
What, 40s, 50s?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Maybe that could work. What's this guy's name? Kevin James, is that his name?
Kevin James? He's not really a serious actor. I mean, he's funny and he's in like comedy and goofy stuff. I guess there has been like this resurgence of funny actors actually doing like serious roles and doing pretty well. So maybe we give him a chance.
Who could it be?
Struggle is to
Black male actors.
help fill out.
I mean, what's that guy's name that I don't like?
That's pretty vague.
The actor. Our age. Superbad.
All of them. Oh, Jonah Hill?
Yeah. He can act.
Yeah, he could act. He could probably be pretty good. I mean, especially since that character doesn't really have too many lines either. He's kind of brooding. Unless we flesh him out and actually follow him as a character.
Well, no. He has to be. He's gonna be the guy. We're watching him the whole time. Jonah Hill.
Fuck,
We're not gonna
I
be watching.
forgot. I don't know why. That's what you were trying to explain to me earlier, and I was like, yeah, I know. And then now I'm like, oh, no, I didn't know. Yeah, you're right. The overweight character is going to be the main character. He's going to be the Jack Nicholson of Face Off. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
Let's just get Jack Nicholson to play him.
Nicolas Cage.
That's what I keep. Why is my brain not working today? Nicolas Cage. Why did I say Jack Nicholson?
Okay.
Nicholas.
I liked when you said Jack Black, because when we were even thinking of Philip Seymour Hoffman, he was like 50, you know? And
Yeah, but Philip Seymour Hoffman is such a better actor than Jack Black.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Jack Black couldn't do it. Jonah Hill.
What if we got someone who isn't necessarily fat and we just told them to gain a bunch of weight, like someone
who,
like, I don't know,
work?
because Tom Hardy does that all the time, and so does
He's Tom Hardy, you know.
I know. I'm not suggesting Tom Hardy.
You know, he's
not
kind of not be able to be doing. He has to look vulnerable. That's why in the movie Drive, the girl in the movie Drive, they picked her even though she's supposed to be Puerto Rican. But all the Puerto Ricans they tried to have for the movie, they didn't look like vulnerable. So like they went with the white girl instead to look vulnerable. So like he has to like look. He can't look like, you know, fucking Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy looks like he can beat the shit out of people. He has to look like vulnerable. Jonah Hill doesn't look like he can beat up anybody.
Jonah Hill could actually play a character that's not necessarily funny, but has comedic timing.
Yeah.
Like in Wolf of Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna keep him Phil, or should I name him Jonah?
Yeah. Okay. We'll go with that for now. Jonah, Jim.
Oh, that's not gonna be good. We'll name him Noah because it's close.
No. Hill.
No.
What's his name?
Oh, okay. Yeah, Jonah Hill. Instead of Phil, it's Hill.
It's funny how it works out like that.
Yeah. Because even if we type in, like, even if we Google find or like control find Hill, Phil will show up because it's part of Hill. Like, you can't spell Phil without Hill. So all, even if we make a mistake somewhere. Now, this is where Act 2 is where we're really probably going to have a harder time. Act 1, Act 3, I think, are pretty solid already, like just from us remembering things. But Act 2 is like the actual things that, you know, going scene to scene. And I think, if I remember correctly, we had a lot of jumping from one character to a next character, and then one character to another character.
This is all happening too fast, I think.
Too
slow. Technically, like his body is gone. That should be the inciting incident.
Well,
that starts his story. His body's gone.
Well, so this is what I was thinking is
we should just start writing.
Okay. I like outlining a little bit, but I guess I have outlined out Act 1, so let's write Act 1 at least.
Well, that is, instead of putting it in the Act 1, go like underneath it and just have the thing bullet points. And these are all bullet points, you know?
So I'll start doing bullet points down below then. So you're saying you want to get into the action as fast as possible.
Well, no, that is the inciting incident. It would be his body's gone.
And that could be considered an inciting incident.
Kind of thing, you know?
Well, so I think that inciting incident and stunning surprise are two like interchangeable things, but at the same time, like, so I guess you could call it whatever you want, but I imagine that maybe he turns Hill away at first, like, hey, no, I don't think that your body type is, you know, your goals are too lofty for your body type, and I don't think I can do for you what you want me to do for you. So he like turns him away, and then Hill like maybe begs him somehow, or like he acts his way into weaseling this person into agreeing by like looking and acting vulnerable, saying like, please help me, like it's for this, it's for so and so, like I don't know, somebody's wedding, it's like, or my wedding or whatever. He's lying, and he convinces Jim to say, okay, I'll take you as a client, I'm gonna help you out, I'm gonna do it I'm going to do the best I can. And so that he's making now a decision. And if he would have just stuck to his guns, the movie wouldn't happen. So he had to make a choice. And that's like the incident that incites the story, because from there, the next thing that happens was already going to happen after the choice was made. Like, his body is gone. That's the surprise. The inciting incident and the stunning surprise are kind of like almost they're like interwoven. But I always like when the characters at least make a choice, you know? So that doesn't even have to be highlighted in this, but he has to make a choice to take this person on as a client. Or maybe his choice is to hunt him down instead of going to the authorities.
I think it's gonna be like he wakes up, he has a routine that he does in the morning. He like checks a thing or something,
Yep.
and walks out.
It's like a montage.
Goes into work, and who's the first client? Oh, it's whatever. And sits down. They do it unexplained. We're not explaining anything. We don't even like show the.
Yep.
Maybe even don't even show the thing up there. Like
we see an ad in the background.
He gets up and goes in and then just sits down in the thing and starts like reading the paper or something like that. And we're playing video games, and then the viewers are like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like, that's what he does for like living. But then like the camera goes and you see,
and we go out and we see the,
doing like perfect form and like a science, perfect. And then like the thing, and then they go back into the thing, and then and that's like before the first page. Like, that's the first page, That's the opening montage of the film. Yeah.
And like barely any talking at all.
Yeah. Besides,
if any,
the hey, okay, now I'm gonna go in the room or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, there's no real talking. There's no explaining. There's no dialogue like that. And then he does that like one time, but we shorten it, and it's now it's obvious like kind of what he does. He's switching bodies and working out for them, And now comes in the bad guy.
So the intro
gotta happen.
I love that. I actually, and I'm even thinking maybe as he's walking to work, we see an ad for bodybuilders in the background, but it doesn't say what it is. It just says, "Bodybuilders, have your dream body today." And then he like walks into the bodybuilders building as it's playing in the background. So it's like it's introducing the setting, but it's not explaining what bodybuilders is. It's not going to say, "Come in and we will switch bodies with you, and then we will make your body good." It's just like, bodybuilders. Yeah. And you're like, "Oh, what's that? Oh, he's walking into that building. Okay, like, let me see. What's he going to do?" He sits down in a chair and plays video games? What the fuck?
Or he's doing
I like that.
He's doing that, and then we're zoomed in on a computer, and it's him on the website or whatever, and we only see the screen. And the guy's clicking and reading his file, and then it starts zooming out, and we see the bad guy. And he clicks something that turns the computer off, and then it keeps zooming out. It's like an empty room, for this guy. He's just using this room. And gets on his thing, and then leaves. And then we go back to the guy, another little montage, and the bad guy comes in.
So I want to talk about the introduction of the bad guy. I think that there should be, like I said, some trickery involved. So maybe, and I would love for Jim to make the choice to train him. So, I mean, where my brain goes is either he turns him away at first because maybe the interview process for this whole thing is actually pretty intense. And he's like, "Look, I don't really need any more clients right now. I've got a pretty full load. You don't really qualify, so like I'm going to have to pass." And then Hill like has to come back and convince him. Or my brain also goes to, there's a contest to win a free year of training or a free session of training for like a poor person, and basically they decide, like, Jim's like, all right, I'll do it. I don't want to do it. Like, they try push it on him, but he then makes the decision, like, okay, I'll do it, and it ends up being Hill. Do you like either of those ideas?
I think it's too much. I almost think that, like, maybe we don't do that other thing where he's in the room. Like, almost make it look like he's like he goes to that gym and or something, and like maybe he's even done it once before. Maybe it's a thing. Like, maybe you have to be a match, so he couldn't have planned it so perfectly. Maybe he has other people on the list.
I guess it could have been anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, he could have been a few other people. I imagine who he could have picked to do it, because he just needs a perfectly good athletic body to pull this shit off. Because he's gonna be, having to do athletic shit.
Okay, so then let's lead off of what you were saying earlier about no explanation. Let's not even make it an introduction for the two of them. He's like, "Oh, Hill's next. Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah.
Like, how you feeling?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm so sore, man. I don't think, like, if I had to chase you right now, I don't think I could." Something like
yes, that's great.
Yeah, and then he's like,
if I tried.
yeah, and then he's like, "You're gonna have a hard time working out today," and then he's like, "Yeah, I live for that pain. It's I love working out with the soreness. Like, it's great." And then so everything is like normal as it's a normal world, and then all of a sudden Hill's gone, and then he starts freaking out, and then maybe something escalates in there, and his choice that he has to make is he's gonna run, because everyone's like, and like they scan him, and it says like, "Oh, you, sir, Mr. Hill, like, yeah, Mr. Hill, you're back in your own body. Like, what are you doing? I don't understand what you're doing."
That's one. Like, I'm starting to remember actually the story, and like we figured that out. Like, because maybe we weren't so good at like writing down and doing script format and stuff, but like definitely the logistics of a different universe and shit like that, we've always been good at that. And I do remember, like, it was like this thing that you have to do in the computer, and they say they did it or whatever.
Yeah, it's like he manipulates the computer, and so that, or he has something that like manipulates the scan.
Yeah, and
did you want to have this be like a wireless thing, or like a Matrix style thing where you have to get something installed in the back of your head, or a plug in the side of your head, like a Neuralink?
I'm thinking a cone that you just wear on your head. It does.
Sweet, that's great. That's non-invasive.
Yeah,
anybody can do this at any time, but also it means it could be weaponized. So yeah, does Hill manipulates the machine and the software to say that, hey, the process already went through, you already changed back? Or is there a way to scan the eye of the retina? Maybe the eyes change.
It's his body. It's not gonna.
Yeah, you're right.
But
so this is a commercial use case, and there's no way to tell if you're in the right body, other than like your receipts. Like, look, I changed there, and then back, and then there, and then back, and then there. In the back.
How about this? We make it so there's a thing that you have to know, like a series of code that you are. It's whatever super scrambled. Nobody else can ever fucking unencrypt it, or whatever. You know it. It's a series of code. So if this mix-up ever happens, you and then this other computer, fucking the people, the matrix of the people who make it, have that code in there. It matches up. Oh, he is in the wrong body because he knows that code. So it's a verbal, and then they switch it, and
maybe that's a failsafe.
This guy is so good at hacking this shit that he hacked into the Matrix to change it to a code that he remembered. So now this guy's gonna spit the code, but they don't know it, so it's just a gibberish code. And he's like, "No, the code is blah, 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 blah." And they're like, "Oh, he is in the right body." And the guy's like, "No, you don't understand."
That I love that idea, but maybe as a failsafe, like that shouldn't be what they rely on to know. Like I feel like maybe if they put a sensor around the head, they can read the brain waves that are like being emitted, and that could be like their scan.
Well, either way, I like the code, I like the brainwave, but either way, he just hacks that mainframe
Yep.
and makes his brainwave, his code, his whatever the reason is that they would know.
He switched everything.
Yeah, he switches it from their perspective, so they think he is the one.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And
so
then
whatever
okay.
it is, it's that. All right, so we should start writing this down.
Okay, I'm writing it down. Maybe he doesn't necessarily like Hill.
Why?
I don't know, because I feel like that will add some new information and make his relationship with Hill more... Maybe it's not that he doesn't like Hill, he's just like, I hate being in that body. That makes it even more, like, raises the stakes, because he's like, I've been in that body before. Every time I get in that body, I feel like shit, like I had just drank, a whole bottle of liquor the night before, because maybe he did, you know what I mean? But he's like, but he's a client,
Yeah.
so...
Oh, didn't we have this, that he's done this before?
That Phil had done this before?
Yeah.
Or Hill?
Phil.
I think in the original Inception, what I remember is
Phil
he's
was like the original. He was a prototype guy for the experiment of doing it, and like it never worked. And like I think he's done this before. So like maybe he doesn't care about his bodies,
Well, the body he's in is not his real body.
Yeah.
It's not his original body. It's almost like an altered carbon where he's like, this is just a shell. If this dies, I don't care. I have another body. So, okay, cool. That's sick. Yeah, so his body's dispendable. Jim gets ready for the day. Montage, we're introduced to how the world works. Jim swaps bodies with his clients and works out for them. But one of Jim's clients, Hill, comes up for his weekly training. Jim silently complains that he hates being in his body because it always feels like shit. Hill's nice to Jim as usual, so Jim's nice back and doesn't bring up the new information. Therefore, he just trains in his body like usual. But by the end of the workout, he says that if Hill doesn't change his lifestyle outside of the training, then he's going to have to drop him as a client. Therefore, he goes back to the waiting room to switch bodies and confront Hill, but Jim's body is gone. Therefore, he starts panicking. And this is kind of like, I think that if we combine the two ideas, it could be a cool idea, like the technology of the brain scanner with the door. If they're inside the room and they switch back, the door won't open because the door reads the brain scan. So it'll only open if your brain is in the right body or the consciousness is in the right body. And so this beat is he starts panicking and screaming for someone to help. He knows that he'll be locked in the room because of the biometric door is linked to Hill's brainwave frequency, not his. But The door reads his brainwaves and it opens. Therefore, workers confront Jim, asking him if he's okay. He explains that he's not Hill, he's Jim. They're confused, and they say that that's not possible. Therefore, Jim agrees to wait for the authorities and try to resolve this. But hours later, he overhears the cops talking to his coworkers, and they don't believe him, so he decides to run. And maybe he even, like you said, talks to some police officer or like investigators, and he gives them his code, and they are like, all right, we're gonna go check this out and, run it through the algorithm. And if they go and they leave, and then maybe he overhears them talking about, hey, this is not the right body. He's in the right body. He's lying. And then when he hears that, he knows that he's going to be taken in, so he runs. And that's kind of like where Act 1 ends, because that's his decision. That's like the start of his journey.
I do remember now that there was another character, that Blade character. He was like a Blade Runner kind of character.
He's the investigator?
The investigator guy, because you were talking about how he talked to the cops. And that is one of the characters that we had, was one of those cop characters. I think it was just like really the main three characters were the bodybuilder, the guy, and the cop.
Actually, I do remember that now, and I agree with you. Like that, it's funny because I brought up the idea of like an investigator, but I wasn't bringing it up as like a main character. But now that you say that, I do remember that, and that can add an awesome dynamic as well. Because if I remember correctly, we had him in the original idea. He is chasing. He's like one step behind Jim the entire time, and he's really convinced that Jim is the bad guy.
Yeah.
And then he's slowly realizing that Jim's not the bad guy, and so we're going on that journey with him as well as Jim's journey. Are we going to cut back to Hill at all? Still, like we were planning.
Yeah, but like as just like little updates on little tiny things like the one we just saw or read, where it's like, well, he gets on a thing and meets with a person who's, part of the plan, and maybe he kills that person or whatever. And until like the end, when we get to know him more, and this big reveal and all the stuffs.
Okay. But it'll be like a quick scene.
Yeah, like, because if we're going to go with like an Odyssey kind of thing, like it has to be like Phil or Hillstar that we're following. Like, he's the main. We're following him almost all the time.
Well,
Else.
I feel like maybe we don't cut away to Hill as often in the beginning, because much like Forrest Gump, it's like there's different chapters. It's almost like a book, which it was based off of a book. So there's like the chapter of Vietnam, the chapter of football in like college, and then the chapter of Vietnam, and they kind of like come into each other, but they don't like overlap really that much. So I feel like the first maybe half of the movie the tension should be, we think that Blade is hunting Phil. We are come to believe just through the way that we're revealing him that he's kind of this scary, tense character. And we're like, when he finally gets caught and it reveals that he's actually a good guy, it like relieves this tension. And then we start getting closer and closer to Hill, and that builds tension again until the release at the end. You know what I mean? So maybe in the beginning, we just focus more on the tension between Blade and Jim, and then once we get into that, like deep into Act 2, probably closer to the midway point, we start revealing, because then we'll start learning about Hill more, because there's going to be a little bit of an exposition drop right at that point where potentially the Gemini hunter is going to tell them who this guy might be. This guy might be like 1,000 years old. You know what I mean? Or like, I don't know. And they're like, what?
These are going like in order of what happens, then this happens, and this happens in order of everything, right?
Yes, we're going to go through every beat of the film from start to finish, and then when we go back to read it, when we go back to write it, we're going to be like, oh, we're gonna like probably remember some stuff and write it completely off the cuff, like this, and then we'll be like, well, what happens next? And we go back here, and the very next thing will be the next thing that happens, and we just have to flesh it out.
I just don't understand why he's running. Like, he's this guy. Why is he running? Like, it's unlike him, you know? I mean, we don't know him in the movie yet. He could be that guy, but I don't think he is, you know? He's like a good guy. Why would he run? Like, and that almost, like, is this guy scary looking or something? Like,
Blade?
did he, yeah, like, why did he run away from him?
I almost imagine him like an agent. Like he's like, or Men in Black, like he's a mysterious man in a suit, or something different than the other cops. He's very stoic. He's not like, clearly not part of this jurisdiction, and so if you were waiting,
But how does he know?
because
He's just
like
a bodybuilder.
I imagine, here's the scene. After he wakes up hours later, he's in kind of an interrogation room or a holding room. He's finishing up this conversation with the detective. He, like, they conclude with the detectives like, okay, let me go, talk to my chief, and we're gonna figure this out together. Okay, you just stay put. And he leaves the room, and when he closes the door, maybe the door doesn't close all the way, and so Jim kind of like sneaks up to the door and cracks it open a little bit, and we see the conversation from Jim's perspective, and Jim kind of overhears the police officers saying like, he's in his, like the scans are all saying that he's in his right body, like but he's still claiming this, like what kind of incentive does he have, or they're having a conversation about it, and then Jim is getting the feeling that they don't believe him. They're like, he's got to be lying. Like, this doesn't lie. The scans don't lie. There's never been a case like this before. And then all of a sudden, Blade walks in, and we get like the music changes, and it gets really like boom. And then we see Blade look very ominous as he walks in, and he says something, or he like postures to them like, I'll take it from here. Like, I deal with this kind of stuff. And then that is what triggers Jim to be like, okay, they don't believe him. They don't believe me. And now this guy's here, and he looks like he's going to take me somewhere and kill me in the back alley somewhere. And so
Yeah, but like, why? Is he covered in scars and has like a Uzi in his hands that he walks around with and doesn't holster? Like, why is he so scary that he runs from the police while he's in a different body, trying to make a police report to get his body?
that makes sense. That's a good point that you bring up. I guess I'm imagining like the similar scenario as the scene from The Matrix when he goes, looks up, checks up above the cubicle, and he sees the agent, and he just turns and looks right at him, and then he ducks back down below. But it's because he's on the phone.
Yeah, but he's talking to Morpheus, who's saying agents are there to come and take you.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, I guess he wouldn't have, if he just peeked over and saw them, he probably wouldn't have been like, oh, they're after me, I gotta run. Without Morpheus saying that. So, okay.
And I also imagine I imagine that they're still at the gym.
Yeah, they're still at the gym, so they're in like one of the rooms, one of the workout rooms, or like the office, and he's in his own office or something, waiting to be released, I guess. Or I was like, they also wouldn't release him either if they're like, if you're stuck in the wrong body, like why would they release? I would imagine the only way that he could leave, is if he thinks that he's in danger and he leaves just to save his life.
I think they have to not be at the gym. There's too many things.
Okay.
Unless there's a different receptionist, a new one who's there for today, or something's going on, because he'd be like, yesterday we talked about this.
Yeah.
To the receptionist, and the receptionist be like, oh yeah, it is you. Because only you knew that,
Okay.
So it can't be there, because then
wait a
whatever. Second. And then we could say something like maybe at the police station, you know.
Okay, so I think I have an
We did
idea.
think of this.
Right when he's starting to freak out, he comes out, he's in Hill's body. Maybe he doesn't have a seizure. Maybe instead the police show up and they arrest him and he's like, what's happening, what's happening? And then boom, we slam cut to he's in an interrogation table, he's locked up, and they're showing him, we've been tracking you, we know you're up to something, like, and he's like, but that's not me, like, I'm the trainer. And they're like, what? Like, to them, it's not, that's not the issue. The issue is they found the guy they've been looking for, and now they finally got him. And then he comes up with this story of, I know I'm a trainer. My name's Jim.
Yeah.
I did this. And then they scan him, and they're like, you're a fucking liar. Like, and then he's like, oh, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm stuck here. Like, and then that would maybe incentivize him to run.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, that makes sense. I like that. But I still want him to have a seizure, though.
Okay.
Maybe he's at a hospital instead, handcuffed to the bed after having a seizure, and the police are like, we know, or a detective or something says we know, and blah 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 blah, and he's trying to break out, but he's like in this weak body. It's not his. He maybe says, like, if I had my fucking body, I could rip this thing apart. Yeah, and then maybe something happens, like we see the silhouette of Blade outside, like the office or something, and he's like, and climbs out the window, and that's how he gets out or something like that, you know. And escapes out the window, and then he goes like, and like looks out the window, and that's when we see Blade looking out the window at him, scaling down the fucking thing. That's a sick scene. That's a sick, yeah. And we think he's the antagonist, you know.
You think Blade is the antagonist because that's all we saw of him.
Because that's all we're gonna see until we actually meet him, and we're gonna see almost like in Home Alone with the shoveler.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good, like,
oh, actually, you're a nice guy who saved my life.
So then how does he escape if he's handcuffed? Describe that scene again where we see Blade enter the hospital. Like,
so they go outside to guard the room and shit like that, make sure no one comes in or whatever the fuck. And he's like trying to get out, handcuffed, and I don't know how he's gonna get out. How do you think he should get out?
And then what does he see? He sees the silhouette.
I'm thinking when he's out now, and he's looking like, how the fuck do I get out of here? They're right outside the door, and like he's kind of looking at the window, and he's like, I don't want to. And then then he sees the silhouette of a fucking person with a detective's hat in the glass or something, talking to the police, and he's like, oh shit, like I'm out of bed, like I'm gonna have to put the handcuffs back on, or he doesn't want to deal with that. So split decision, he's like, all right, I have to go out the window, and he goes out the window, and then we cut to the door. It opens up. It's the guy. It's Blade or something. Or no, the door opens up, and
we don't see.
Yeah, we don't see Blade. So it'll cut right there, and then it'll go to outside, and we see him scaling down. Or maybe we see the back of him as he enters the room, and we don't actually see him, and he's like, stops, he looks, and he sees the window, runs over to the window, and then when he looks out the window is the reveal of who it is, and maybe it'll be someone cool. Who is it gonna be?
Christian Bale.
Because then we're not gonna name him Blade, we're gonna name him this actor, and that we're thinking of, you know, like we normally do.
Let me pitch this to you about the handcuffs. What if he's like, and he's trying to get it out, and then he gives up, and then he like looks up, and he realizes that he could just slide his hands out like that, and the cops were that dumb? Or do you not want like that kind of comedic relief in there.
No, I'd rather him get out. Like that's actually, I was trying to think like maybe he has like a pick or something, or a
But
pin
if
that he
both
uses. But
though,
then like, why is he able to do that? And or like, I was trying to think of maybe he could use his smarts. But then like, how do you outsmart handcuffs? But
what
like, I would like it to be him completing it, and it's not just like failure to do their jobs
what if
saves him.
in the beginning of the film, in one of the montages, he like one of his clients is like, "Hey, do the trick," and he's like, "Oh, okay, okay, I'll do it." And he like then he handcuffs himself, and or he zip ties himself instead of
Nah,
handcuffs.
I'd laugh if that was in the scene. If that was in a movie of them trying to explain why he could do it, it's just a magic trick he learned.
No, it's
You
not a
know?
magic trick, but it's like the way that he leverages it. He's like goes like this and he leverages it and he could break the chain. And then later when he's chained, he like takes his knee and he puts it in there and he leverages it and he breaks one of his chains. I don't know. So since Jim is not a suspect in this case at all, it's just this guy Hill. Maybe he goes back to Jim's apartment and it's completely empty and it's completely abandoned. And he goes through the apartment. We could have a whole scene in the apartment where we get to kind of know what's happening a little bit more without exposition, and then we can maybe even show a client list, or he sees a picture of him with his previous clients or something, and that's how he gets the idea to go visit this other guy, this rich guy, and then from there we can fade into that next scene.
How did he get out though? Did we talk about that?
He jumps out the window. He doesn't want to jump out the window, but then he sees the silhouette
Yeah,
of Blade.
but how did he get out?
Oh, I didn't. I just put. He finds a way to get out of his cuffs.
All right.
I guess we
Yeah.
should probably
To be disclosed.
to be
Yeah.
disclosed. We could do some type
We'll
of a
figure
setup
it
of
out.
payoff, but yeah, maybe even it's zip ties and like I said, it's there's like a way to get out of zip ties. There's a technique, you know. It's not like a magic trick. There's an actual technique that we can reference, and he knows how to do it, so he does it.
Yeah, but just to be disclosed.
To be
Okay.
disclosed. So
So now we saw Blade. He's escaped down the hospital and he's running away.
let me ask you this too. What if we make Blade if Blade is a part of a dark organization that nobody knows about, then he probably doesn't want anybody to really be paying attention to what he's doing. So if there's somebody
Yes.
that he could like pass out with like a needle to the neck or a chloroform thing and have them just look like they're sleeping and forget all about him, maybe we have in the silhouette he does
Spy
that.
shit.
Yeah,
Spy shit.
maybe
I'd
yeah.
rather him not do spy shit and do uh like authority things. Like flash badges and whatever. I even think I was just thinking like imagine we have him he works for the patent office.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of authority they have, but patents are everywhere, right? Across the entire world, so that's a global thing, right?
Yeah, maybe especially during this time because it's very
Yeah.
capitalist and it's yeah, so he works for the patent office and he's what, trying to cover up this crime from coming out because it would ruin
No,
the patent
he's
for the mind swap technology or something like that. Investigating something.
I don't know. He is okay, so the technology is
I always thought he
being
was like
used for
CIA.
bodybuilders. It's the technology is being used for the bodybuilders. They're like the only business that's doing it, but there is a secret business of like longevity and like rulers and really rich people doing it, but like that's black market. The patent office or the whatever made that illegal
So he's chasing this
to do
guy.
that for. So yeah, he's chasing this guy who broke a patent. Or
Who's
something like
selling
that.
permanent mind swaps to rich people, and then he also does it himself.
Or even better, on top, that's what he does. That's what his job is. But this other thing that Phil or Hill did is hacked the patent office. So all the patents, the secret patents,
Oh,
that aren't allowed to be exposed, and all the different things and secrets and whatever the fuck, he has all that shit. So he's
that's
selling
cool.
patents,
He's
hidden
selling
patents.
patents, and he's using.
Yeah, he broke in. He learned that the in the original patent for the mind swap thing, it's not just a cap that you wear.
It's a
That
permanent
Wi-Fi is.
procedure.
It was originally a permanent procedure. You just do that and you take it off. And he learned that, and then that's how he used it. So that's like the implications of him breaking into the patent office. He has the original documents of all things, not just like the handed down things that the government is like, oh, let's see the patent.
Sick.
Takes a few pages out. Here you go. You know?
Dude, that's a sick idea. I like that a lot, and that makes a lot of sense for his character as well. So, okay, cool.
And that's interesting, a patent office.
Yeah,
But like this is like also the future one world government fucking patent office. So like it's pretty powerful.
yeah.
And the level of, I mean, that's another thing. Like patent offices deal with like super top secret shit, like Tesla shit. You know, they have that, and you're not allowed to get it. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. There's so many interviews coming out nowadays about
Yeah,
all of those secret patents and how crazy it's possibly about to get in the world, which I hope it does,
yeah.
because I want to see anti-gravity technology, and I want to see interstellar travel, and I want to see
Yo,
aliens and all that
you know
shit,
how
dude.
you know how the fucking future shit that we always write about sort of like comes true. This patent shit. This is gonna be one of those things.
That the
This is
patent
gonna be
office,
one.
like, it's like IRS on steroids. They come after your patent. Like, if you do something that's classified
Mm-hmm.
within the patent office, you try to patent it, we're coming after you. We're just gonna murder your family.
Mm-hmm.
He
All
sees
right.
a
He jumps out the
photo
window.
of him with Dick. The whole scene that we came up with.
Wait, why is Dick in? Apartment with him and Dick. Okay, so he jumps out the window.
He goes
Blue
back to
thing.
his apartment.
Blue thing, in between, at the bottom of.
Oh
he
yeah,
jumps
okay.
out the window.
You're right. You're right. Oh. Sick. Okay, he goes back to his apartment, looks around, sees a photo of him with Dick. So he decides to visit Dick and seek asylum because he knows he's powerful.
He breaks.
Yeah, because like everything's synced to their PDA device and he doesn't have it.
Yeah, and he breaks into it, but then it goes where, and he just does the code
Yeah.
because he knows the code. Once
Yeah.
he's inside, it just wouldn't open for him.
And then maybe he has to leave because one of his neighbors comes by and he's like, "Jim, is that you? What happened?" And he's like, "Who the hell are you?" And he goes, "Oh, hey." And then he says his name. He's like, "It's me, it's Jim." And he goes, "I'm calling the cops." And he goes back to his, and he's like, "Shit, and what do I do?" And then he like looks over and he sees a picture.
Yeah. And then that's how Blade knows he goes to Dick's, is because he sees fingerprints on the picture.
Or even a camera picture of him breaking into the apartment.
Or no, he sees the recent footsteps of the fat guy in the apartment, and he's following the footsteps, and he stands and he looks, and right in front of him is the picture of him and Dick.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, he's going to Dick's.
Yeah, he follows them
see-
and they stop like right there, and he
Yeah,
follows them and he stops and then he looks up and right there is the picture, and then
yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh dude, this is cool. His neighbor calls the police, and so his neighbor leaves and says, "I'm calling the cops," and he leaves, and we stay on Dick. And Dick is panicking. He like starts grabbing things, and then he walks over to the cabinet, and then he looks up and he sees the picture of Dick, and then he's like, huh, "Okay," and then he like grabs the client paper with all the addresses and stuff from all his old clients, and he runs out the door, and then we follow him down the street all the way to Dick's place. I think this would be a good cut point where like we see the whole scene of the hologram, and then we go inside, and he's starting to convince Dick. He's like, why should I believe you? And he says something about his knee, and he's like, I remember that knee every single day working out. And then he goes, Jim, it is you. And then they like hug, and we cut to Blade, and we see him at Jim's house tracking the footprints. And then we go back to Dick's house, and we see him put the beanie on his head and search for the memories.
Oh yeah, that was cool. I like that. Yeah, because that made sense. The point that you said is like it would still the format would still be there, and then that we came up with the seizures. Oh, that's actually better than quick plan. Is
The planning happens down here.
Wait, Jim has another PS.
No. SEISURE.
A Pfizer?
He has another Pfizer.
Yeah.
Okay, and then after,
and that's another reason why fucking what's his face, Dick believes him and knows that he needs his help.
and maybe Dick knows that this procedure actually can be permanent. That because of his namesake, he knows some things about the world that most people don't know. And he goes, "Yeah, I've actually heard of this happening before. Like these, like your brain is permanently seizing or fusing with this body, and."
But like also he's gonna be he wants to help a little bit because his family is gonna be implicated in any of this knowledge dump that fucking this guy would do, you know? But then again, he is on his way apparently to Mars to be one of the founders of Lemnos.
Yeah, he's about to clear basically everything that he owns off of Earth and never come back.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So,
maybe that's
he's
actually a
not
cool
too worried,
thing.
but he's letting him. He's helping him a little bit, you know, while he's also about to flee. You know, just nothing too out of the way for him. You know.
You know, what if we actually had a really cool scene where they're about to leave and Blade shows up and Blade breaks in, and then they leave out the back, and then he like blows his house up, and he blows his own house up with Blade inside, or when he thinks Blade is inside, and or collapses his entire house. Blade somehow survives because it wasn't an explosion, and Jim's like, "Why would you do that?" And he goes, "I'm never coming back here," and it's like hinting to the fact that he's leaving.
Yeah, I like that, but
And then later on, that could also cause a funny like tension moment where he's like, "Oh, you're a good guy," and Blade's like, "Yes," and he's like, "Sorry, sorry about the house thing." I don't know.
I like that, but I also imagine it being like a sick house, and I don't want to see it get destroyed.
It's
I
gonna
think
have like art and shit in it.
I think it should get destroyed
the art
because
that
of
he
how
leaves
sick it
behind.
is.
Uh,
I don't know. That's just an idea.
undisclosed.
Yeah, undisclosed.
Undisclosed.
So, but regardless, they have to move fast and get to Rapture. So now there's a blue line, except it's black. And then, they head to the spaceport on the iceberg island. And then so this is like we could have an entire like 20-minute scene here in the iceberg if we want to have another epic or like another
He has to meet somebody.
yeah, he does, and maybe that person doesn't go along with them along the rest of their trip, but maybe it's somebody that Dick introduces him to, and he helps them get off of the iceberg by like distracting Blade or something like that. But then he ends up staying, and they end up leaving, and then we have a whole nother 20-minute section on on Dick's space station, and then we finally get to the moon, and we have probably another.
Yo, sick. Whoever this guy is, he's meeting him because it's Dick Richmond, Paul Richmond's son, and one of the things they say to each other back and forth is, "Oh, you ready for your trip? You ready to go?" And whatever the guy could be to, like, "Yep, I'm ready. What about you?"
Yeah, but he never
yeah,
says
we're about to
where
go
he's
right
going.
now.
Yeah, they never say it, but like this will be like a trend too through the movie with like these rich and powerful
Ooh,
people
they're all leaving.
Yeah, they're just leaving to go do this other thing on Mars and found it, like kind of like a what's that called? Atlas Shrugged, where all the fucking the business owners start leaving and
I think that
doing
is that
their own
Atlas
thing in
Shrugged.
this certain city or whatever. But yeah, something like that.
That's a cool
in that
idea.
fashion. Yeah, in that fashion, they'll do that.
Okay, so then we're gonna have a whole story arc. Like essentially, we'll come up each location will almost be like a different episode of a show that all blends together into a movie. So we'll do then Iceberg.
Like Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, dude.
That movie
Good
has,
example.
All the different locations and everything. It's like a slower pace, so like it all works. That's a good example. Yeah.
And then we'll have the climax is on Rapture. And because he gets arrested on Rapture, he goes to the Rapture jail, which is the 3x of Earth's gravity or something like that. And most people are like dragging, and he's doing push-ups.
Rapture is the iceberg.
No, Rapture is the city on the moon.
That's Cairn now. Remember, we changed it. Rapture used to be what it was called.
Oh, so then I'm assuming... Yes, okay, obviously it's called Cairn, but that's what I was assuming it was because that was the original conception of that idea, that they had to get to Cairn for some reason because that's where the archives are with all of this information. It would be in the center of, like, the capital of all of Earth is on the moon, right, at this point? So let me actually change this to Cairn.
Cairn City.
Yes.
Because nobody says the moon anymore. That's another thing that we're going to make a thing.
They just call it Cairn.
It's called Cairn. The moon is now called Cairn.
Yeah.
And
like the United
so
States of America
City.
is the United States of America is America, even though there's North America, South America. When you say America,
Yeah.
you know you're talking about the United States of America.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's Kansas City. During the scam, he has a seizure. They move fast to go to Kansas City.
Yes.
Or no, they'll say Jim hitches a ride with Dick, who is on the way to Mars. Parentheses, to found Lemnos. Alright, they head to the spaceport on Iceberg Island.
This is such a cool, like,
They
back...
head to the iceberg on Iceberg Island. Blue Blade, or whatever his name is, tracks fucking Dick's speeder or whatever they're in, instead of going to his house. So now we know he's on the way to Iceberg Island. And now they arrive at Iceberg Island. Or they get out and are greeted by that Jenkins guy or whoever was there.
Yeah.
And that Jenkins guy was sent by the person who they're going to meet, who would be like maybe like the CEO or manager of Iceberg Island. And that's where the guy he's talking to about, like, oh, you ready to leave? Wink, wink, hint, hint.
Okay, so here's a couple things to think about. When is Blade going to actually interact with and join up and team up with Jim? And how...
The moon.
As soon as they get to the moon?
Yeah.
And then how is he going to know that Jim is actually the good guy? Does he have a procedure that the normal people don't have? Like, almost like in Blade Runner, where he has, like, a special test that not everybody knows?
That would be good, but also the other clues, too, you know?
He puts it together, maybe? But we're not cutting back to him very much, so we want to make it up until the point where they actually interact. We want to make it seem like Blade is a bad guy chasing him down. And because we're not even paying any attention to Hill at this point, as soon as they team up, then we start cutting back over to Hill and see what he's been up to. Stay tuned for part 2, and please like and subscribe.